different countries, whether they're Jewish tourists or Christian tourists. And Israel even has a lot of Muslim tourists coming from places like Malaysia or Indonesia. They come, it's not that easy for them to visit because these countries don't have an official relationship with Israel, but they do come. And I've seen quite a few tourist groups where the women were all wearing hijabs, and they came to visit the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem and other Muslim shrines in Israel, or beautiful mosques and so forth. And so it's wonderful for to see those people in Israel. But beyond that, Israel has a lot to offer the visitors. Let me just see here real quick. Hang on. And because it's always somebody just sent me an email here. Hang on just one second. How do I forward this to her? Hang on one second. There's somebody begging to come into the meeting, and they registered after the deadline. So hang on just a second. Sent items. And to Jane Tom. Stuff is here. Hang on just a second, guys. Okay, so this is the point where I close my email and I come back to give you my full attention here, and I'm gonna reshare the screen, and we're gonna go back to our presentation. Okay, so beyond being the Holy Land, Israel has a lot to offer for people visiting with just about every type of interest you can imagine, and I'd love to tell you a little bit about this and show you a little bit about Israel. From many different perspectives, and we'll look at the arts of Israel, the history of Israel a little bit, talk about it, cultures, architecture, culinary, social, and let me see, what else do we have here? The pictures in the way. Also, of course, Israel has some beautiful natural landscapes and nature places to visit, and it's also interesting for professional people or people looking to expand their professional horizons. Israel has a lot to offer for that as well. So let's start for a second with the arts, and just to show you how much Israel likes the arts, I'd like to ask anybody here on the lecture in the group, what is this man holding here? Would anybody like to take a guess? I'm assuming that Stanley knows, but does anybody else have a guess as to what this man is holding in those boxes?
I can't see well enough.
You can't see well enough.
No.
Okay. Well, it's
boxes of Girl Scout cookies.
Girl Scout cookies. Okay, that's a great guess. So basically, what he's holding in his hands, this place, he's coming out of a distribution center for gas masks.
Oh my.
And this is a picture from probably about 20 years ago, maybe more than that. You see, back in the 1990s, early 1990s, during the first Gulf War, when Saddam Hussein was threatening to shoot missiles at Israel, there was a fear that the missiles would have chemicals in them, that they would be chemical bombs. And so Israel distributed gas masks to everybody in the country, and you had to go to one of the distribution centers and get for your family. So the smaller boxes, the ones with the black writing on them, those are for adults. They're just the regular gas masks that you know from from what you see in maybe movies or on TV. And the larger ones are actually the boxes for children up to a certain age. They had boxes. You would open it up basically if there was an alarm or a siren. You would open up the boxes and you would have some sort of a crib or something that you could put a baby inside or a little child inside that would protect the child from any gas attacks from the outside while still providing oxygen. So this is what this person is carrying here. He's coming out of the distribution center, and every several years, Israelis had to go to the distribution centers to renew them. This has been stopped recently, but that was true until at least the early 2000s. So why am I telling you this in relationship to Israeli arts? Because you see, back in the 1991, there was a concert at by the Israeli Philharmonic, and during the concert, a siren came on. And what you would expect to happen in a concert during a siren is kind of not what happened. So I'm trying to get this thing to run here. Let's see if it'll run. Technology is usually very friendly theoretically until the time that you need it. I'm waiting for it to connect. And you know what? I might try to, let me just bring up a, stop the share. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Nope. So I'm going to try to do it on YouTube for a second. Hang on just a second. I want you to see this. It's very interesting. And here we go. Take a look at what happens here. So he's in the middle of the concert and the siren comes on. And the crowd just puts on their masks and continues to enjoy the concert. This is 1991. Missiles are flying on Tel Aviv. This is Isaac Stern, one of the most famous violinists in the world.
Je vais continuer à jouer. Et je jouerai encore après.
So this is a piece from Israel TV, or French TV actually. I'm sorry that they took some photos. So that's how much Israelis love their art. And now we can go back to our presentation here. And let me see here. Let me move to the next slide. And one of the things Israelis love is outdoor concerts. And this, we heard a couple of weeks ago from Idan about the ancient Roman port city of Caesarea, which was actually first inhabited by the Phoenicians, if I'm not mistaken. And you can see that the amphitheater in Caesarea is used for concerts, especially during the spring and the summertime. Israelis love to visit concerts, and if you're in Israel during a time that you have some free time in the evening in Tel Aviv or something, and you're interested in seeing like one of the outside concerts at Caesarea, then definitely it's quite an event that you can participate in. Let me see here. Another thing in Israel, as far as arts and music, is the Abu Ghosh Festival. Abu Ghosh is an Arab town that is located outside of Jerusalem, about 6 miles outside of Jerusalem, and every year, in the local Crusader era church that they have there, they have an a cappella festival for choirs that come from all over the world to sing, whether it's religious songs, liturgy, or regular classical music, or jazz, or anything you can imagine. This festival is known worldwide for a cappella music. They also have lots of other types of music, but it's all done in this church because of the acoustics and also around it in the gardens. And so if you're in Israel and you have some free time during during your stay in Jerusalem, it's always recommended to try to find, and this is, by the way, every year in October. So it's called the Abu Ghosh Festival. And by the way, my kibbutz is just less than a mile away from Abu Ghosh. So I remember as a kid going there quite a bit just to see all the people and enjoy some of the music, even though at that age, the music wasn't my big interest. My interest was to see the people from all over the world. So this is every October, just outside of Jerusalem. Now, if you're into to dancing or dances, this, by the way, is a youth dance troupe that comes from the area where my family, my wife and I and the kids lived in northern Israel. It's called the Misgav Regional Council. And in the Misgav Regional Council, the high school kids have a dance troupe. It's like one of the major extracurricular activities. They don't have football. They barely have any soccer. What they do is they dance. And these kids are invited all over the world for their dancing shows. They've been to the U.S. several times. They go to Europe. They go to Africa, Russia, Australia, you name it. They've been there. They're considered to be absolutely incredible. And most of their shows in Israel, this would be in northern Israel, most of their shows are completely free and open to the public because it's just a high school. So, so if you happen to be in Israel and you're interested in seeing some Israeli folk dancing, you're definitely welcome to enjoy some of the dancing from the Misgav Regional Council, which is where we still own a home, by the way. Another type of festival in Israel is they have, aside from the dancing and the singing festivals, they also have all kinds of artsy festivals. And one of the most famous ones is the Jerusalem Light Festival. And this is a festival that lasts about a week. It's usually the first week in June. I don't think they'll have it this year. I mean, it should be now, basically. It's probably canceled. But what they do is they light up the entire city. They bring artists from all over the world to create all kinds of works of art from light. And so some of the artists, like you can see on the right, will take a building and put lights on it that you can see on the right. And some of the artists will do all kinds of crazy things like putting pink elephants on the old city walls. While people are walking through, you can see the crowds there at the bottom. Now they have, in this light festival, they have 3 different electric wires, neon lights. They have the white, the green, and the blue. So if you follow the white line, you can see on the left under the elephants. If you follow that line, it'll take you through the Christian sites. And if you follow the green lights, it'll take you through the Muslim sites. And if you follow the blue lights, it'll take you through the Jewish sites. And of course, you're welcome at any point. It's not that you have to follow each line all the way through the end. You're welcome to go through, to make turns and, and change your direction at any given point. And this is absolutely magnificent. And many, many hundreds of thousands of people come there. This is the first week of June every year. Another interesting dance troupe, by the way, in Tel Aviv, the big city in Israel, the more modern metropolis and the business center of Israel, is a show that's very similar to the Blue Man Group that they have here in Las Vegas. This is the Mayumana group in Jaffa, the ancient port city of Jaffa, which is very popular with Israelis for food and for entertainment, and for also it's related to Christianity. And so if you happen to be in Tel Aviv and you have some free time, Mayumana is definitely a great place to visit for their show. They do it in some old building somewhere. Another place that they have that's very interesting to visit is a place called Na Lagat. Na Lagat in Hebrew, as you can see at the bottom where I took the photo from, Na Lagat means please touch, as opposed to please don't touch. So the place is a center for people who are blind and deaf and mute. In other words, you can be either blind or deaf and mute, or mute and blind, any of these combinations. It's a center for these people, and they have a theater where you can come and see a show that they have put together. It's very, very popular with Israelis. And you can also have dinner. It's called Dinner in the Dark before the show, where everything is completely dark, so that you will get the feeling of what it's like to have a dinner when you're blind. But this place, Na Lagat, is also in Jaffa, and it's highly recommended if you're looking for something that's completely unique and different. Remember, these people are all completely blind, plus, you know, they might be mute or something of that nature. Another thing that's very popular in Israel is exercising, and I want to show you a video here of what I think it's from 2010, and it's the largest exercise group that was filmed at the time. This is during Israel's Women's Day or Mother's Day. I forget which one it is, but you can see here. Let's take a quick look here and see what it looks like. If I'm not mistaken, it was a crowd of about 8,000 people exercising at the same time on this Women's Day exercise day that they had. This is in the port of Tel Aviv. Now, Tel Aviv has two ports, just so you know. Neither one of them has ships in it. The first one is the ancient port of Jaffa, the fishing port, which is known from the biblical times as the port of, from Jonah, the story about Jonah. And that was also the port through which the trees, for example, were brought in for the building of the temple during the days of Solomon, the first temple. The trees were brought in from Lebanon, the cedar trees, in order to build the temple. And then you have what's called the new port, which is the northern part of town, which is today called the old port. That new old port is where they're having this exercise, and it's a beautiful boardwalk area today with lots of restaurants and coffee shops. So if you look it up on Google, the old port of Tel Aviv, you'll see that there's so much to see and do there. It's a wonderful place to spend a nice evening, especially if the weather's nice and you're in Tel Aviv, you happen to be in Tel Aviv, then you're welcome to come. There's exercising, there's singing, there's just walking around, there's restaurants, there's coffee shops, just about anything you can imagine. Now, if you're not into exercising, but if you are into dancing, they have, in Israel, we can see here, people love to folk dance in Israel, and anybody can join. You can do anything you want. You don't have to know how to dance. You don't have to look serious. Just enjoy it. And this is also done at the port of Tel Aviv. And we can see here, it's usually done on a Thursday evening or a Friday morning when people have off. And we can see here, this is dancing in the old port of Tel Aviv, which is always a lot of fun. And as I said, anybody can join. You don't have to know how to dance. All you have to do is just walk in and watch the others and just have fun. Israelis love folk dancing. It's a big thing for Israelis. Is Jennifer with us on the line, by the way, in the meeting? I'm not sure. You see the photo credit at the bottom there that I gave to Jennifer. I have a friend here in Milwaukee, Jennifer Saber, who travels to Israel a lot. And every time she goes to Israel for one of her meetings or something, I ask her to try out something that might be of interest to my clients. And so two of the things she's tried out, one of the things that she's tried out is the graffiti tour, which is very popular for people going in Tel Aviv. You can go, just about every wall in Tel Aviv has graffiti on it. And every graffiti has a story behind it. And sometimes the graffiti is about people, the graffiti artists are talking to each other through the drawings. And it's very, very interesting. And you can see here, for example, on the left side, you can see the picture of the, sort of looks like an ancient picture, but she has an iPad. And there's and there's even a QR code here if you want an explanation about it. But it's a very interesting tour to take. Lots of colors being used all over southern Tel Aviv, and it's one of the things that a lot of my clients that go and stay in Tel Aviv, they do this during their touring. It's about an hour and a half or so, and it's very interesting to see. As well in Israel in arts, I wanted to show you here. If you look at this picture, this is a picture of the Israel Museum in Jerusalem. Now, on the top of the picture here, I don't know if you can see the arrow here, but if you see, this is the parking lot on the front here. Can everybody see the arrow moving? Wafika, can you see it? Yeah? Okay. So next to the parking lot, we have this building over here, which you might recognize if you've been to Israel. That is the Shrine of the Book, where they have the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's this building here. And then the groups usually move to the other building over here, or not a building actually, but this is the model of ancient Jerusalem. So this is where 99% of the people go, especially the Christian groups, the pilgrimages. They come to see the model of the old city of Jerusalem over here, and then they go into the Shrine of the Book, and to see the Dead Sea Scrolls, and then they go back to the bus. But to see how big the museum is, that's why I'm showing you the museum from the outside. There, literally, you can spend a day here without seeing the same thing twice, from arts to archaeology to ancient Egyptian things that they borrow from the National Museum in Egypt, which will open one day, I'm sure. And right, Wafika. And we have, like I said, we have arts. We have all kinds of interesting shows, whether it's music or things for the kids to do. So this is a huge museum. And if you have time in Israel, if you have a day off, definitely the Israel Museum is one place to go if you'd like to stay indoors. And also at the top here, above the museum, over here, that's the Knesset, the Israeli parliament. 120 people that nobody really knows what they're doing. But in any event, this is the Israel Museum. And here's a museum that not a lot of people know about, but it's really a beautiful, tiny little gem. It's called the Museum of Islamic Art. And they bring art from all over the Islamic world. Now, the Islamic world is different than the Arab world. It's two completely different things. You could be a Muslim and a non-Arab, or you can be an Arab and a non-Muslim. There's so many different variations in this. So this comes from all over the Islamic world, whether it's from Southern Asia, or whether it's from Southeast Asia, whether it's from the Arab countries, the Maghreb, Turkey, all the way as far west as Morocco, southern Spain. And you can see some of the works that they have here on the left side of the screen. And also they have at this museum, unrelated to Islamic art, they also have a fantastic collection of watches, ancient watches and clocks and stuff like that, which is magnificent to look at. So this is a little gem in Israel that very few people know about. You can do it as a guided tour with your group, or you could do it on your own if you have some free time. It's a lot of very, very interesting to see about, the art that came from the Islamic world during the Islamic Renaissance is just absolutely fantastic and beautiful, whether it's musical instruments or pieces of art from buildings or paintings, carpets, and so forth. Another interesting museum in Israel, this one happens to be in the south, in the city of Arad. There is a glass museum. There's an artist who creates works of art completely 100% from glass. And what's interesting about this is not just the fact that the works of art are from glass, but they're all three-dimensional, where if you walk around the work of art, you'll see completely different pictures or completely different things of what he's trying to depict. So I didn't take a picture here of this, but if you look at this, for example, at these faces from the other side, you might, for example, see, I don't know, somebody sitting in a park or something. So it could be something completely different, but it's all three-dimensional, made completely from glass in the southern city of Arad, which is not too far from Masada, by the way, a little bit west of Masada. And if you're interested in peace, which I'm always interested in, it's my favorite word in the dictionary. You know, Israel has a border with the Gaza Strip, and once in a while there's tensions with rockets flying and people dying, and bad things are happening between Israel and the Hamas, which controls the Gaza Strip. But this one particular person in a Israeli village just north of the Gaza Strip, literally on the border of the Gaza Strip, they decided that what you see here is a security wall. It's completely made out of cement that's very thick in order to protect the village from Hamas shootings. And you can see, by the way, in the wall, if you look carefully at the wall, you can see the holes of the bullets. And what this family does is they provide you with glue, colorful stones, and all kinds of stuff. And anybody who wants to can come and add to this picture with their free time. It's a wonderful activity when things are quiet next to the Gaza Strip. You know, people bring their kids and they have a lot of fun. And you can be a little artsy in your thinking here. So it's called a Path to Peace, which is right on the border with the Gaza Strip. Now, a lot of people, when they visit Israel, they go through some of Israel's national parks. Masada, for example, is a national park. Where else do we have? We have all kinds of national parks in the north that people visit. But the National Parks Organization of Israel has more than 250 parks. 250 parks that you can visit. And if you see in the middle of the picture on the top there, it says Israel Pass. And basically you can buy a ticket that has either 3 entries or 6 entries or unlimited entries. And you can go and visit any of these 250 national parks, you know, within a 2-week period that you'd like. And the national parks have to do with nature. For example, the first one that you see on the left here, it's just a part of the website, is the Achziv National Park, which is about conservation of the Mediterranean turtles. And they have a little bit of history there. It's a beautiful place to visit. The Amud National Stream is a beautiful place to visit if you're interested in a nature hike. Apollonia is an ancient Roman city. So you can see all over the country. So if you go to parks.org.il and click on the English language on the top left there, you'll be able to look through all the different parks and see if any of them are of interest to you. And if they are, then definitely you should go visit them. And it's not that expensive. Even if you don't have one of the multiple entry tickets, the entrance fee is 28 shekels, which is maybe about $8 per park. But you can save a lot of money when you have the National Park card, which is what I do for each one of my groups. We buy them one of the cards according to the number of entries that they need. Some of the parks, for example, we heard a lecture, if you remember, about Petra, the Nabatean city in Jordan. And Petra was basically a pit stop on the spice route from Asia all the way through India, southern Asia, the Middle East, the Saudi Arabia area, into Jordan, into Israel, to the port of Gaza, which is today in the Gaza Strip. But back then, the Gaza port was a very big, major port from which they exported and imported a lot of things along the spice route. And Avdat in the Negev, Israel's southern region, Avdat was also a city just like Petra. It was a Nabatean pit stop along the way. And over time, it was, when the Byzantine era came, the Roman Empire split between the two, the Catholic and the Byzantine. So the Byzantine Empire took over. They started building it like their buildings, and they put a Byzantine church. And you can see here, my beautiful daughter and I, a couple of years ago, we went to visit Avdat National Park. You can either go up by car or you can hike a little bit, maybe half a mile, going a little bit uphill. And it's very interesting to visit with beautiful desert scenery. Another national park, as an example, is the Montfort National Park. This is a Crusader fortress from the Middle Ages, from the 12th century, 13th century. We had the Crusaders coming to protect the Holy Land from the west. They came from Malta, the island of Malta, and which was their base in the from the European continent. And they came to Israel, and they had all these castles in order to guard the roads and make sure that the Islamic Empire from the other side wasn't going to take over the Holy Land. They were basically fighting between them, the Christians and the Muslims. So in Jordan, for example, you'll see Islamic castles along the, from north to south, facing the Byzantine and the Crusader castles from the west, from the Israeli side. So that's from the period of time when the two forces were fighting against each other. Here is an example of a natural site. We have Gana Shlosha, the Garden of the Three, also called the Sachne, which is in northern Israel, a little bit south of the Sea of Galilee. And these natural pools, you can swim in them, and the water is so clear and so wonderful that you just don't want to step outside. That's the problem. So it's a beautiful place to visit, to swim. You can sit on the lawns with your family or your group and just enjoy some time off, especially if the weather is warm. My recommendation is don't show up here on a Friday or Saturday, because the place will be absolutely packed with millions of Israelis that are looking for anything, any place of water that they can jump into. Then we have another example of a national park is Tzipori National Park. We all know the story of Masada, which is the famous part of the Jewish rebellion against the Roman Empire. But the Jewish rebellion actually took place in 4 different locations throughout Israel at the time. Of course, they lost the rebellion. The Romans got really upset, and they kicked out most of the Jews. As a matter of fact, the Jewish population of Israel before the rebellion was in the vicinity of about 3 million people, and it went down after the rebellion to about 100,000. So that's basically what the rebellion cost the Jewish people. But Tzipori was one of the centers, was one of the places where they had this rebellion, but they eventually decided that they weren't going to fight the Romans. As soon as the Romans showed up, the Jewish people came to them and said, we're with you, we surrender, do whatever you want, and we're willing to support you. And so the Romans left Tzipori, which was a big Jewish center of the time. The Romans left that place alone. And of course, they added their amphitheater, they added the churches later on during the Byzantine era. But basically, the place itself was left alone. For the Christian friends that we have with us today, Tzipori Sepphoris is, if I'm not mistaken, it's the birthplace of Mary. And so it also has a very strong connection to the Christian faith, and it is located about in northern Israel, maybe about half an hour from Nazareth, the city of Nazareth. And so it's one of the most fantastic places to visit. Beautiful mosaic floors, including the zodiac signs. So Tzipori National Parks is definitely highly recommended for those interested in a little bit of Jewish history as well as Christian history. Next to Tzipori, by the way, an hour's walk from Tzipori, and maybe 7 minutes by car, is a place called Bethlehem in the Galilee. And Bethlehem in the Galilee is a place that goes really far back in time to biblical times. It was known as Bethlehem in the Galilee to differentiate it from Bethlehem, which was near Jerusalem, Bethlehem in Judea. And over time, Bethlehem in the Galilee in the 19th century under the Ottoman Empire, German Templars, German evangelists came to the Holy Land. They bought land in all kinds of places, and they created these colonies, and their beautiful buildings are still left until today. And there is one archaeologist in Israel, at least one that I know of, who claims that Bethlehem in the Galilee is actually the birthplace of Jesus and not the Bethlehem next to Jerusalem. He is not taken too seriously by the Israeli Archaeological Society or by of course, by the leaders of the Christian churches. But he claims that because Bethlehem in the Galilee is so close to Nazareth, and that Bethlehem in the Galilee is so close to Sepphoris, which is where Mary was born, and considering that there's a story in the Bible talks about Mary and Joseph going to Bethlehem in order to be counted in the Roman census, when Mary was 9 months pregnant, his opinion is that they didn't travel all the way to Bethlehem next to Jerusalem. They traveled to Bethlehem in the Galilee, which is where Jesus was born. So that's what he thinks. But again, like I said, you know, he's one in many, and there are many other archaeologists who completely disagree with him about this. But in any event, Bethlehem in the Galilee is a fantastic place to visit. They also have a very interesting spice store. They grow their own spices in that place, and it's a lot of fun to come and visit. Speaking of places that a lot of people don't visit, or places that nobody knows, we have, for example, here you can see on the left side a monument. And if you look at the flag next to the monument, you'll see that it's a Turkish flag. What is the Turkish flag doing next to a monument next to the Sea of Galilee? Well, it's an interesting story, and very, very few people know about it, but it's still an interesting place to visit. And it's a story about the power of one, which I love telling when people visit there. You're seeing my son there, my number two, my middle son. During the days of the Ottoman Empire, when they were beginning to understand that it was the end of the empire, that they were losing the war against the British and the French, and they figured it was time to bring up the morale throughout the Ottoman Empire, and so they had a couple of Turkish pilots fly one of those very early planes, you know, with the two wings, the double wing planes that were basically made out of cloth or something like that. To fly from Istanbul through the Ottoman Empire to what was Damascus in Syria, which was part of the empire, and then from there into Israel to fly over Jerusalem, and from there to fly to Cairo, because they wanted to bring up the morale of the people and to show them that the Ottoman Empire is modern and strong and they have an air force. And so these two pilots took off in this little propeller plane, flying around the Middle East, until they got to the Sea of Galilee, to fly over the Sea of Galilee. And what they didn't know at the time was that the Sea of Galilee has a lot of turbulence above it, because it's so low, it's so far down below. It's 400 meters, about 1,000 feet below sea level in the Syrian-African rift, that there's a lot of turbulence above the lake. And so when they flew over the turbulence, over the lake, they were hit by this turbulence. Their plane was basically ripped to shreds by the winds, and they crashed, and both were killed right on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. The Ottoman Empire created a monument for them. They flew the body, or they took the bodies back to Turkey to bury them, but they built a monument for them. That was in 1915, 1916. I'm not sure exactly what year. And almost 100 years later, 90-something years later, the monument was completely forgotten about. It was hidden behind some banana trees next to the Sea of Galilee. Nobody even cared about it. You know, there was all full of shrubs and trees around it. Until one guy in a nearby kibbutz decided that he was going to take care of this monument. And he started to clean the shrubs and to take away some of the trees, and he put a fence around it, and he put a nice little sign that you can see on the left side there of explaining what happened, and he put up the flags. And the Turkish embassy sent some people to come and look at this, and they were so impressed by it that they sent a immediate message. This is late 90s. They sent a message to headquarters in Ankara, and the Turkish people were so very impressed with this in Ankara. It became a famous story all over Turkey, and it actually helped to strengthen the ties between Israel and Turkey back in the day. And it's all because one man decided to take care of a monument that everybody had forgotten about. Another place that a lot of people don't know about is the one on the right here. This is called Afia's home, Afia's house. It's located in the northern town of Shlomi. And Afia came to Israel from Yemen in the 1950s. She was a Jew that fled Yemen when the Jews were expelled from most of the Arab countries, or basically convinced to leave. And they came to Israel, but they brought with them the traditions of their countries. And she came from Yemen, and she loved to draw in Yemen. But in Israel, her husband didn't allow her to draw on the walls because it was a new country, and he wanted them to be modern and everything. And so until the age of 80, she didn't do any of the painting that she loved so much to do before she left Yemen. And when her husband died, about 20 years ago, at the age of 80, she drew up her entire house. She painted the entire house in the same art that she had back in her home in Yemen. And it's, the municipality of Shlomi opened it up as a place for visitors to come and see. And you need to call the municipality and get a key to come and see it. She died recently, maybe 5-10 years ago, but the place today is a museum. Very, very interesting place to visit. And speaking of Israel beyond the arts and everything, and we spoke about the national parks. One thing the Israelis like to do, aside from exercising and aside from folk dancing, Israelis love hiking. They hike all day, all night. They love hiking. From the age of about first grade, Israelis learn to hike. What we're seeing here is the Ein Gedi Nature Preserve next to Masada, next to the Dead Sea. And you can see these kids. This is a class from a school that they're coming to hike. Basically, you start hiking in first grade. You do a little bit of hiking around the school. And then in second grade, you go a little bit further. Maybe the bus will take you somewhere, by the school for more hiking. And by the time you're in fourth grade or fifth grade, you start to spend the night somewhere so you can do more hiking in a distant place. So Israelis love to hike. And if you like to hike, there are many, many places in these national parks that we spoke about before, and also the places that are not national parks. Many places where you can hike, whether it can be for 15 minutes or it can be for an entire month. And what I mean by hiking for an entire month, if you look at the map in the middle here, this is a map of the Israel Trail. Let me just see that you see this. So if you look at the red line that goes all the way down, this is called the Israel Trail. And the Israel Trail is divided, I think, into about 50 or 60 different segments, each one of them about, anywhere from 2 kilometers to 10 kilometers in length, and a little different level of activities. And if you want to do the entire trail, go through all of Israel, it'll take you about a month. People do it for about a month. They come and they do it, and along the trail, they have something called the Trail Angels. Those are people who live, nearby the trail, and they open their homes for people who want to shower or people who want to eat something or just camp on their lawn or something. And so they're called the trail angels. You know, families, what they do is they go and they hike, you know, one particular segment, and then they'll come back a few weeks later on a weekend and they'll hike another particular segment. So this can be done all the way from northern Israel to the south. And as you can see on the picture on the right, we have the picture of the tree with a sign on it. And the Israeli Nature Authority, they're very, very good at mapping the trails, the hiking trails, so that it's very easy for hikers, even those who don't know, who aren't like specialists in hiking, to follow the trail. So what we're seeing here is 3 different colors, which means that this tree is an entrance into or is on the path of 3 different trails. And maybe the next tree or the next rock will have the orange trail turning left with the blue and the white continuing straight. So if you're doing the orange trail, you just take a left and you continue walking. And the interesting thing about this, the very simple rule of thumb about this, I think it's a law actually, to make sure that people aren't lost, is that from every one of these signs with the colors, you have to be able to see the next one. And so you can tell, you can take a look to the left, for example, and see where you're supposed to go next. And from there, you'll see where you're supposed to go next. And so the hiking is very easy and it's very difficult to get lost. Something else we have in Israel that we're very proud of is birding. A lot of people come from all over the world to see birding, and you can see birding in the north and the south. Israel is on the Africa-Syrian Rift, which is a major, major migration route for birds. In the fall, they go south. In the spring, they come back north. You can see the storks and the different waterfowl that come, and they basically, Israel is like a pit stop for them. The northern part of Israel, the Sea of Galilee, and the Hula Valley Nature Preserve. And the bird on the left, that is called, in Hebrew, it's called a duchifat. And in English, it's called a hupui. Hupui. This is the national bird of Israel, is the hupui. And so we have birding people, birders that love to come from all over the world to try to spot all the different birds that we have in the country. If anybody is into scuba diving, on the left, you see my son there in the Red Sea. Israel is a major scuba diving spot for the Red Sea. And if you go a little bit south of Israel into the Sinai Peninsula, you're already in Egyptian territory, and you can go all the way south along the Sinai Peninsula to Sharm el-Sheikh. They have Nuweiba, they have Dahab, they have, what else do we have? Taba. But all those are absolutely fantastic diving places. The Red Sea itself, the eastern part of the Red Sea, is a major diving place, and it's absolutely fantastic for people who want to do that. And you can even swim with the dolphins if you want. And here we have a gazelle. You can see this is all over southern Israel. The gazelles just quietly stand there. Sometimes even inside the cities, you have gazelles just walking around looking for food. They're very quiet, gentle animals. And it's a lot of fun to try to spot them all kinds of places. The landscapes, the Ramon crater in Israel is the largest natural crater in the world. It's a crater that was not created by an asteroid or anything of that nature or aliens. It's just erosion over hundreds of millions of years through water erosion and wind erosion. You can see the crater on the left with the beautiful views, and it's also hikeable on the inside. And on the right, you can see the photo of what the walls of the crater looks like. You can see all the different levels of stone and sand and soil that they have from the erosion that have gone by throughout the millions and millions of years. Very, very interesting place to visit. And this is my son and I. We did like a little trip, hiking and a little bit of jeeping inside the crater. You can see the crater behind us. And if you're interested, by the way, if you like desert scenery and you want to stay for a night, then I would recommend that you stay at the Israel Hotel. It's called the Bereshit Hotel, which is one of the top hotels in Israel. I myself would not be able to afford more than a cup of coffee at this hotel. As you can see, every room has its own little pool, And you also have the hotel pool with the beds overlooking the crater. The hotel itself, by the way, if you look at the picture on the right, you'll see that the hotel is built from stone from the area, so it sort of blends into the colors of the crater. And I would say probably in the vicinity of anywhere between $500 to $900 a night, depending on how many meals you want and the period of the year. But it's an absolutely magnificent hotel that I hope to one day be able to afford when the tourism industry comes back. Another place for landscape, I want to show you my home sweet home in the Galilee. So here on the left, we've got the kitchen and the little eating area. The home is pretty small. You know, homes in Israel are smaller than they are in the U.S. The whole thing is maybe 100 square meters, which is about 1,000 square feet. I love it. You can see the white cement here, and which is most of the houses in Israel are built from cement, as opposed to the U.S. that they're built from wood. And the reason for that is that the cement keeps the heat out in the summer, and it keeps the warmth in during the winter. And thank you, Lola. And if you look out the window from my living room, our house, by the way, is currently being rented, you will see the Beit Netofa Valley. So I call it my valley. And it's usually filled with fields from the nearby Arab villages of, we have an Arab village here of Buena and another Arab village here of Najidat. They have one municipality called Buena Najidat, and they have fields in the valley, as well as another Arab village that is behind us called Araba, and they have their fields there as well. What you're seeing here, by the way, is the water. After the winter rains, the place itself is filled with water. The valley is filled with water, so it looks like a lake, but then it dries up pretty quickly in the spring, and that's when they start to plant everything. So that's the view from my home in Israel. This is the valley, by the way, in the summer. You can see, by the way, that everything is very dry. This is a year that we didn't have a lot of rain when I took that picture several years ago. You can see the Arab villages on the other side there. And the one thing I'm very happy about is the Israeli government was looking for a place to build another airport in addition to the Ben Gurion airport next to Tel Aviv, because there's so much traffic there. And one of the places that they were considering was my valley. They were considering to put an airport right below my window there. And thankfully, they decided not to do that. So you can see, by the way, also under my home, you can see the olive trees, some of which have been around for hundreds of, an olive tree can easily grow 300-400 years. And the Arab villagers who own the land up until the border of the village, they grow olives there. And during the month of October, which is the Masik, when you shake the trees and bring down the olives, anybody is welcome to join them. They have a Masik festival. You're welcome to join our Arab neighbors in bringing down the olives and making olive oil with them. And this is my village during sunset, home, sweet home. And I miss it so much. My home, by the way, is in the last row on the left here. If you're looking at the left, you can see the houses there. So one of those, I forget which one, is mine. And if you look all the way in the background there, in the back, those are the lights of the city of Haifa. You're looking west. So this is the middle of the Galilee. You can see the little road that I used to take to work every day along the mountainside. And if you went west, you would eventually reach the Mediterranean to the lights of Haifa over there. So that is the village of Avtalion in the middle of the Galilee, right between the Sea of Galilee and the Haifa. That's where my village is. Let's talk a little bit about visiting markets in Israel. We have a few minutes here. So this is the Carmel market in Tel Aviv. And of course, street food is my favorite type of food in Israel. Just grab something for $5, $6, $10. And, you know, they have every type of street food that you can imagine, from every type of tradition and every type of culture. And some of it is even free. Like, for example, when they make the falafel, they'll cut the pita, you know, to make an opening at the top. And the little piece of bread that's left from the pita, they'll fry it, and you can stand there while you're waiting for them to make the falafel. You can and just eat the pieces of pita that are left, from cutting them. The olives, Mediterranean area, has many, many, many different types of olives. You've got the olives that are grown in Israel, in Syria, in Cyprus, in Lebanon. I don't know, Wafika, if Egypt has olives. Maybe in the very north, they have some olive trees.
Yeah, well, we have olive trees almost everywhere. Where not in the south, definitely, but until Middle Egypt, we have olive trees, and we
Really?
have a certain season we turn them into pickles. And you can go if you go like right by the Khan al Khalili Bazaar,
Yeah.
they call it Suq al Lamoun, which means the market of lemon, but actually it's lemon and olives. For a couple of months, it's a big thing there, and all the ladies go and get them to pickle them for the whole year. Yeah.
Fantastic. I didn't know Egypt had, I thought the climate of Egypt was not right for olive trees, but I guess it is. So you have olive trees in Egypt. You have olive trees all the way through Tunisia, Libya, Algeria, and of course the northern part. Italy is very famous for their olive trees. Greece, and as far west as Spain. So you can see the many, many different types of olives that there are, and each one of them has a
Everybody
different
loves
taste.
olive.
What's it? Everybody loves olives, and and olive oil is so much healthier than the regular canola oil or vegetable oil that they have here, that they have in other places. This is my son Idan. He was having lunch with me. This is in the Machne Yehuda market in Jerusalem, and we were just sitting for lunch. It's a tiny, tiny little restaurant with maybe 2 tables next to everybody that's walking around. We were just sitting having some lunch, and I got him to smile. He wasn't very happy about the picture, but I got him to smile, and you can see there's all the different people walking there and buying stuff, and you can just get anything in these markets. And of course, remember that the Machne Yehuda market at 7 p.m. every night, they close the market, and all the restaurants and the bars open up in the same places, and so you can do something in the evening there as well. Another market in Israel every Tuesday and Friday in the southern neighborhood of Nachlat Binyamin in Tel Aviv. There's the arts market, the arts and crafts fair, which is an open street market. Every Tuesday and Friday at 11 o'clock in the morning till about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. They have every type of art you can imagine from artists all over the world, and it's a wonderful place to visit a couple of hours in Tel Aviv. Speaking of Tel Aviv, the architecture of Tel Aviv, if you're into architecture, this is very interesting. There used to be in the late 1920s, early 1930s, there was a school, an architecture school, an art school called the Bauhaus in Germany. It was a very popular type of architecture and type of art, very efficient type of buildings. And the Bauhaus, the German Jews who worked at the school came to Israel, and they built thousands of buildings all over Tel Aviv and all over Israel, as a matter of fact, but mostly in Tel Aviv, of this very, very unique architecture. And maybe they have them in other places in the Middle East, but Israel is like the big place where the German architecture is made. This Bauhaus architecture is made. And you can see these absolutely magnificent buildings. Some of them today are hotels. Some of them are private apartment buildings. Some of them are restaurants, but southern Tel Aviv, if you're into interesting architecture, and you can see, by the way, the modern and the old put together here on the left and also on the right. So definitely Israel is an interesting architecture perspective. As far as gardens are concerned, everybody knows the Baha'is. Here in the US, they have a big center in Evanston, Illinois. But in Israel, that's their major center, the Baha'i faith, which started in Iran and eventually found its way to Israel. They have 2 centers. One is in the city of Akko and one is in Haifa. And you can see the gardens are absolutely meticulous. Every person in the Baha'i faith, they donate money to the faith, and they build these beautiful shrines and gardens from the money that they raise. And it's a fantastic place to visit for a couple of hours. And these are gardens in Zichron Yaakov, a little bit south of Haifa. It's not the Baha'i Gardens, but you can see that it's a wonderful place for a couple of hours in the afternoon to relax if you happen to be in the area, or even go through it with your group. You don't have to take free time to do this. It's just nice to walk for half an hour or an hour just in some nice green place. And as far as cultures and traditions, you know, I've got a couple more slides here. I'm sorry I'm running a little over time here, but the Jewish people came to Israel from just about everywhere. And when they came to Israel from everywhere, they brought with them their cultures, their traditions. And what we're seeing here is a couple that is from the Caucasus, which is southern Asia. And they're doing a dance, which I forget the name. I think it's Ladizka or something like that. It looks like YouTube isn't connecting here. But if we go back, let's see if it'll work for a second here. Maybe not. But in any event, I wanted to show you the wedding dance that they have here, the Ladizka wedding dance, and that's not working out so well. But in addition to Jewish traditions, of course, which I'll show you all the, you know, many of the different countries that they came from, we also have the non-Jewish minorities in Israel, which are about 20% of the population in Israel. And here, for example, we can, I don't know what's going on here, but for some reason, I wanted to show you the dancing of a very quick dance by the Circassians. The Circassians are Muslims, Shiite Muslims who were brought to the area. Oh, here, now it shows up suddenly. Okay, so let's see if I can play this for a second. This is the wedding dance from the Caucasian. What's interesting here is to note that the bride is basically floating around the dance floor, while the men, the groom and all the other men in the wedding, they dance around her. Each one of them is, okay, to face each other, while she basically just floats like an angel around the dance floor. And you can see that the men are dancing around her, giving her all the respect and honor. I think it's called like this, something like that. This is the Jews from the Caucasian mountains. Here comes the next guy who wants his turn. Now he's going to start. The bride, of course, is floating around. Letting him do whatever they need to do. Okay, and then if we go to the next slide, I wonder if this one will work. So here is the Circassian dance. These are, again, they're Muslims. They came from southern Asia during the days of the Ottoman period. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. I'll just move on to the next slide. There's about 100,000 You can see that they look So the Circassians, they live in Israel in two villages called Rechania and Kafir Kama, I'm sorry, which is next to Nazareth. And and you're always welcome to visit their heritage centers to see some dancing, eat some food, learn about their cultures. We have, but as far as Jewish, the majority of Israelis are Jewish, and the Jewish people came from all over the world. Here we see on the left, we see the Ethiopian clergy, the rabbis from the Ethiopians that came to Israel in the 1980s in a huge project by the Israeli government to bring them during the 1980s. If you want to see an interesting movie, you can watch a movie, if you have Netflix, called Red Sea Diving Resort, about how the Israeli government, the Mossad, which is the Israeli CIA, they bought a diving resort in Sudan. And that diving resort, based on the Red Sea, basically became like a place where they managed to bring all the Jews out of Ethiopia into Sudan. And then the Israeli airlines and the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli Navy, they all went and brought them up from in these secret projects, you know, over time during the 1980s. It's called Project Moses. And here we can see on the left, we see a Druze gentleman. Everybody who's been to Israel has heard about the Druze and knows about the Druze. It's a tiny little sect, also about 100,000 people in Israel. And the Druze are not Muslim, they're not Circassian. They took a little bit of everything. They've been around since the days of basically the Roman Empire. They base it on Islam, they base it on Christianity, on Judaism, on Greek philosophy. So that's the Druze on the left. And if you guys have been on my tour of Israel, then you know that you also get lunch with the Druze when we travel through the country, which is always very tasty. And on the right, by the way, we see Yemenite Jews. These are girls wearing traditional Yemenite clothing, which they wear during weddings and so forth. And here we have an Arab farmer in Israel. You can visit the Arab villages and towns. He's showing them all the different agricultural tools that they've used throughout the centuries in Arab agriculture, which in Israel and Palestine, throughout the whole Arab world. Very interesting to learn about their history. And if you're so just take a look at all the different places, all the different traditions that you can visit. Each one of these groups of people in Israel has a heritage center that you can come and learn about them. You know, whether it's, you know, the Bedouins, the Arab nomads in southern Israel or northern Israel, the Muslims, you know, there's 20 different types of Muslims. A lot of people think that Muslims are, you know, it's not just Sunni and Shiite. You've got the Sufi and you've got the Salafi and you've got this and that. You've got 20 different types of Muslim, and each one of them has a heritage center in a mosque or something like that, or a church for the Christians, and you're welcome to come and learn about them and hear about them. Of course, with the Jewish people, they came after the creation of the State of Israel from pretty much all over the world. And every group has its own heritage center where they have the clothes and the food and the information. As far as culinary experiences in Israel, we spoke about that. There's so many different culinary experiences in Israel, in restaurants, in street food. You can go home hospitality. You can do cooking activities if you're interested in learning how to cook. They have Arabs in Israel that welcome you to their home, and they teach you how to make all kinds of foods that Jewish people have been trying to make for ages and just have been unable to copy the Arabs, like, you know, how to make a good couscous, or how to make, you know, the grape leaves with the rice inside and stuff like that. So the Arab will bring you into their home. They'll teach you how to make the authentic type of stuff. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to meet people, of course. Here we see a Moroccan restaurant. You can see the different dishes from the Moroccan food. I went to visit a Moroccan family, and they basically prepared an entire meal just for my son and I. And of course, I was never able to finish everything, but it's, you know, you can see the setting, all the colors of the different dishes that they have. And, you know, one of the things that, of course, nobody does on the groups is I like to send my clients, those that are a little bit on the adventurous side, to a hotel in the Galilee that's way up in the mountains. It's not next to the Sea of Galilee. It's about an hour away, but it's a very simple 2-star hotel that has a front lawn, you know, and just very simple rooms, but it's just what Israelis need. It's mostly an Israeli hotel. Very, very few tourists, if ever, get there. And I think mine are the only tourists that ever go there. And it's very cheap as well. But this hotel they also have the beautiful lawn up front. You can see all the rooms are like little houses. They have the lawns. And the family that I showed you before that has these Moroccan meals, they live right next to the hotel. So we open a table on this lawn for the group or for the family, and a complete meal outside on the lawn in the beautiful weather up in the mountains of the Galilee. So that's an opportunity to enjoy Israel. And of course, for those of you who traveled through me, you remember the Druze lunch that we have up in the Galilee mountains. It's exactly the same place. It's in Malkia, the kibbutz Malkia, where you have the lunch and the soldiers, and also the hotel with the meals. And on the left, of course, we have the famous, it's a Tunisian food which became popular in Israel, very, very popular everywhere. It's called shakshuka, very easy to make. You can make it at home. It's got maybe 10 ingredients. you're welcome to make it yourself. But of course, there's nothing like a meal that somebody else prepared for you in the restaurant. And what they do is they bring you the food, the shakshuka, in these pans here, along with everything else, and a good beer, and it's a great meal. And in the city of Jaffa, we have the Abraj restaurant. Here I am with a group of friends. I'm not there, but these are a group of friends of mine. Absolutely fantastic seafood. For those that love seafood, this is probably one of the best in Israel. As far as wineries and breweries, we have so many wineries and breweries in Israel. The Tulip Winery on the left. These people these beautiful people are people with special needs, and they're hired by the winery to do all the work in the winery. And so you get to tour the winery with them, and they just love hugging people, and they love showing you around, and it's a great place, and they make absolutely fantastic wine as well. That's the winery on the left, these wonderful people here. And you can see on the picture on the right, this is a place called the Beer Bazaar in the Stanley. I see that you're focusing now that we're on to the beer, right?
Yes.
Okay, so so the Beer Bazaar is in the Jerusalem market and the Tel Aviv market, and they have Israeli beers. You can taste them for like, I think, $5. You can get as many tastes as you want. Just look at all the different types of beers made in Israel in the breweries. And it's really interesting in the market in Israel. We're almost at the end here. Some people are interested in learning about Israel as because everybody knows that Israel is kind of a startup nation with all the technology and so forth. And there's an interesting part of Israel as far as business is concerned. There's a tiny little museum in Tel Aviv that nobody knows about, or very few people know about. Usually Israelis go there just because they want to see something from their past. This is a museum called Made in Israel Museum. And believe it or not, up until the 1970s or 1980s, almost everything you can imagine was made in Israel. They had factories for everything, from tricycles to shoes to typewriters to coffee and whatever you want. You can see all the different things that were once made in Israel, including cars and fighter jets. And wow. And but the thing is that over time, because of globalization, of course, the companies moved out of Israel and they started to create things in China. And today, none of this exists. Almost none of it exists. Some of the companies were actually pretty famous. You may remember that a very famous women's bathing suit company called Gotex, which was very popular all over the world. That was a Jewish lady in Tel Aviv who came to Israel from some European country, and I forget where. And she, Gutman, I think is her name, with her daughters, she created the Gotex bathing suits, which were very, very famous and popular around the world. And today it's almost gone, almost gone. So everything today is made in China and other places. I think there were some things for a while that were made in Egypt. Some of the cotton, some of the different clothing was made in Egypt or Jordan. But even then, things were moved to China or Southeast Asia. So it's a very interesting museum if you want to see all the different artifacts that were made in Israel. And today, Israel is everybody knows that it's a technology. So if you're into technology, if you work in technology, if you want to learn about technology, you can see all the companies, the multinational corporations that have research and development centers in Israel, going from Google to Facebook to Berkshire Hathaway, Philips, IBM. I mean, every one of these large companies, the product is, the algorithms or the research and development is done in Israel and then sent to other places around the world to actually create the product. But there are also very famous Israeli companies that some of you might know, such as Amdocs, which has large offices in the U.S. You may know if you use Google Maps, you may know that there's the Israeli version Waze, which now belongs to Google as well. You have Fiverr and Checkpoint. Checkpoint, by the way, is the first antivirus company for computer viruses in the world. And today, of course, there's many dozens of them, but it's a large company. So Israel is very well known for its technology, in addition to the fact that they have about 5,000 startups all over the country, many of them doing very, very interesting things. And aside from technology, Israel also has several other aspects business that are very interesting. Even if you're not into business, if you just want to learn a little bit about them, you can see on the left, you can see, for example, agriculture in Israel. You can see how green everything is. That's because irrigation technology basically started in Israel. Automated irrigation started in Israel when they had to basically think of how do we grow things in the middle of the desert. And so people from all over the world come to Israel to learn about irrigation systems and how to do agriculture in the desert. Then they take that technology back with them to Africa, even to Arab countries, many of them. They won't say anything about it. They'll never admit it, but they do work with Israel a lot for their agriculture, for water desalination. But because there's no relationship between Israel and many of the Arab countries, they don't like to admit it too much. Israel even has its own airplanes that they make today. Israel had fighter jets in the past, but the United States asked Israel to stop making them because they didn't want Israel to have its own planes. They wanted to keep Israel from buying the F-16s or the American planes. And so Israel stopped creating the fighter jets, but they still have the Israel aircraft industry, which is for civilian jets. And somebody mentioned, who was it? I forget, I saw in the chat, Lola, who spoke about the medical technology. Israel is very, very big with medical technology. And so these are very interesting things to come and learn about in Israel. Basically, that's the presentation. And I wanted to ask if anybody has any questions about anything. We're about 20 minutes over time here. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Thank you very much, Ophir. That was very interesting.
I'd like to show you for another 2 seconds something that I did for my wife. So many different people that you're able to visit in Israel. A few years ago, my wife asked me to think about something that she could do in school about Israel. And I said to her, well, why not do something about Israeli society to show the diversity? And so I thought of it as a sort of a room where people could walk in and they could see next to all the different people, what their religion was or what their background was. And there's so many interesting people you can visit in Israel and hear lectures by them. So for example, this is Amal Ayub from the city of Nazareth. So she's a Muslim woman, and she is the CEO of a biomedical startup company. So it's very, very interesting to listen to her story of how she started out. It's a very rare thing to see, for Muslim women. They're just now starting to come out in Israel and in other places in the Middle East. And in Israel, they're already running CEO companies. And this is, for example, Lucy Achrish from the Israeli television, very popular. So this is an example, all these examples of very interesting people that you can meet in Israel when you're there, whether they're Muslim, they're Christian, very, very interesting. So I just wanted to show you, does anybody know Nas Daily from Facebook, by the way? Very popular page with tens of millions of people following him. His name is Nusser Yassin. He's from the village of Araba. He's my neighbor in Israel. And if you look up Nas Daily on Facebook, you'll be able to see wonderful, wonderful movies, little snippets of 5 or 6 different movies that, 5 or 6 different minutes for each movie that he talks about peace and about different countries around the world. So it's really, really interesting to follow him. So that's my presentation for today. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you'll take the time to enjoy it when you